Stage was set and all eyes were on the crucial meeting between the US president and the Ukrainian president. The US was looking to sign a rare minerals deal with Ukraine in exchange for the aid. The meeting began on a positive note with handshakes and smiles between the two leaders. However, tensions escalated when Vice President of the United States of America, JD Vance, interjected to answer a question about Trump's support for Russia, and the meeting descended into chaos. This argument has left Ukraine's future uncertain, but it is important to understand how this verbal duel began. During the meeting in the Oval Office, US Vice President Vance suggested that diplomacy was the best way to end the war. A visibly irate Zelensky argued that Putin was unreliable and pointed to the ceasefire deal signed in 2015. During the argument, Zelensky went on to claim that the US would also feel the impact of the Ukraine war if it continued. This seems to have triggered US President Donald Trump when he told Zelensky, "You are in no position to dictate how we are going to feel." Take a look at what exactly happened in the Oval Office.
A lot of questions. Let's start from the beginning.
Sure.
First of all, during the war, everybody has problems. Even you, but you have nice ocean and don't feel now, but you will feel it in the future. God bless.
You don't know that.
God bless.
You
God bless. You will not have a war.
Don't tell us what we're going to feel. We're trying to solve a problem. Don't tell us what we're going to feel.
I'm not telling you.
Because
I'm
you're in no
answering on this
position to
question.
dictate that.
That's
Remember
exactly
this.
what
I'm not
You're in
dictating.
no position to dictate what we're going to feel.
You
We're
will-
going to feel very
you will
good.
feel influenced.
We're going to feel very good and
telling
very
you,
strong.
You will feel influence.
You're right now not in a very good position. You've allowed
From the
yourself
very-
to be in a
from
very
the
bad
very
position,
beginning
and he
of the
happens
war.
to be right about
From the
it.
very beginning of the war.
You're not
Mr.
in a
Brown,
good position.
I
You don't
was
have
in
the cards right now. With us, you start
I'm
having
not playing
cards.
cards.
But right now, you
I'm
don't.
very
You're playing
serious,
cards.
Mr. President.
You're
I'm
playing
very
cards.
serious.
You're
I'm
gambling
the
with the
president
lives
in
of
war.
millions of people.
You think-
You're gambling with World War III.
What are you
You're
thinking about?
gambling with
What are you
World
thinking
War
about?
III. And what you're doing is very disrespectful to the country, this country.
I'm
It's
with
back
all
to
respect to
you.
your
Far
country.
more than a lot of people said
very
they
respect.
should have.
Now, viewers, a new statement, in fact, has come from the Ukrainian president in which he has stated that his country is grateful to the United States for all the support and he wants the U.S. to stand more firmly on Ukraine's side. He further added, all Ukrainians want to hear a strong U.S. position on Ukraine's side. It's understandable that U.S. might look for dialogue with Putin, but the U.S. has always spoken about peace through strength, and together they can take strong steps against Putin. And not just that, he even mentioned that we are ready to sign the minerals agreement and it will be the first step towards security guarantees, but it's not enough. We will need more than just that. So that's a long statement, in fact, that Zelensky has now put out on social media platform X. Let's now go across to my guest who is joining us on the broadcast this evening to decode what really happened and how should we in India look at the developments at the Oval Office. Ambassador Shashank, former Foreign Secretary, is live with us this evening. Good evening, Ambassador Shashank. Thank you very much for joining us here on Times Now. Firstly, if I want you to describe what happened, perhaps in one or two words in the Oval Office, how will you respond?
Well, normally, many of these things don't come up at the highest levels because there are back channels and there's a prior briefing given to the leaders so that this kind of situation does not arise. Obviously, here we find that the domestic audiences were also a part of the talks. President Zelensky has been talked as a dictator, and so he wanted to show that he has great support of his people. And President Trump has been saying that his predecessor was a weak man and who was playing games, who was not really doing anything substantial, but only talking and giving false promises to Zelensky and Ukraine. So I think there's a domestic aspect to the whole issue, which has made it very much more difficult. But I presume that ultimately they will come round to the idea that peace has to be achieved, because that is a good objective. Diplomatic talks need to be pursued. I believe that in London, they are going to have a meeting with the European leaders. So perhaps if Zelensky is there, he can also brief them and they can come up with a solution so that it can be a European-led solution but which leads towards peace. And I think that USA has already made its position clear. I think they have cut down their financial and armament assistance. So therefore, the Europe will have to fill the gap and come forward more in case they want to go on for some more time with a kind of a position of strength and providing better security guarantees to Ukraine.
So, Ambassador Shashank, you don't think that this has come to a point of no return as far as, equation between US and Ukraine is concerned, given how US also sided with Russia on that resolution at the UNGA. So, given what happened, given the kind of statement that we got from US President and now the latest one coming in from Zelensky, you think that perhaps there is still scope for peace and it's still not at a point when there, things can't be back on a negotiation table?
Well, basically, as a diplomat who has practiced and learned diplomacy over 40 years, I think we are always hopeful and optimistic towards achieving a political diplomatic solution. In this particular case, we find that President Trump considers himself a deal maker. Also, President Zelensky cannot take it as a personal slight by talking rudely to the leaders of the most important power in the world, because he's representing his people. So he has to come back to some kind of a peaceful solution. If he wants security guarantees, perhaps they have to be given more by the Europeans. The Americans were giving the financial guarantees that if there are American companies based in Ukraine, closer to the borders with Russia, obviously they are supposed to take care of the security, but this will be indirect security guarantee, not the direct security guarantee. And that, of course, will have to be kept in mind by the leaders of countries in Asia, whether it is Taiwan, whether it is India, whatever it is. So we also have to keep that in mind, that USA is not in a position now to give security guarantees, especially if they feel that this can lead to a World War III. So therefore, I think President Trump, perhaps he did not want to say so clearly, but he came out very clearly with his assessment that President Zelensky is gambling with World War III.
Now, in a situation like this, we have seen Europe rallying behind Zelensky, Italy asking for an immediate summit. Should India also take a stand or be in a wait-and-watch mode as India has been in, the situation between Russia and Ukraine?
No. Point is that for Europe, it's an immediate situation. President Macron and Prime Minister Starmer, they had been recently to USA. They must have surely made the position of the European leaders quite clear to President Trump. But I think as far as India is concerned, Asian countries are concerned, President Trump is saying that he wants to now pay more attention to the tensions in Asia. So therefore, we have to keep in mind from that point of view that what will be the next steps which will take place and support which they can expect from USA and to what extent.
And Ambassador Shashank, why do you think, JD Vance, the US Vice President, was insisting on Zelensky expressing gratitude towards the United States of America? Because that also was highlighted in what happened in the Oval Office between the three leaders. And, there was a report suggesting that since January 2022, at least 33 times Zelensky has expressed gratitude towards America. Why do you think that was also an important issue that was raised by JD Vance? And after this incident, we have seen Zelensky literally going on a thanking spree. He is thanking everybody who supported him on social media platform.
Well, JD Vance had made the American position quite clear at the Munich Security Conference. And I think that was not taken very well by the Europeans, as you saw that many of the European leaders and commissioners came over to India also. So they are also trying to find partners in Asia. The JD Vance, I think, made very clear, Trump also made it very clear that during the election campaign in America, President Zelensky was going all over the place in support of President Biden. So they might have taken it also as a kind of personal involvement in the American domestic politics by a foreign leader.
Do you think it could be pre-planned? I mean, what happened? Because it's not the first time that, these two leaders have met, isn't it?
Well, I remember that President Carter had come to India, and after his talks with Morarji Desai as the Prime Minister, the mic was kept open and he said, look, we have to give a strong message to these people later on as you go back to America. So that was on the Indian nuclear developments. So therefore, it is quite likely that this was all made, and President Trump did say that it's good that everything is coming out in the open, and the press also knows what all is happening. Because, you know, previously when President Biden was in power, all the time the press was saying that there is no clear-cut plan to end this war. So this was becoming an endless conflict where more and more people were losing lives. The Europeans were suffering, their economies were suffering. Americans had tried to build up their oil and gas viable as a viable alternative to the Russian gas. But I think that was also not moving at that time. So I think, therefore, there is a difficulty that where do you end this war? At what point? And what kind of security you want to achieve? So therefore, the Europeans have to talk to Putin as to what kind of security can be obtained. What Trump is saying that he feels that whatever, let's say, commitments are made by President Putin, he will stand by them. Zelensky is saying that, no, he will not stand by them. So therefore, Zelensky is trying to give advice to President Trump as if he is his security advisor or intelligence advisor, which Trump does not like very much.
Absolutely. And that's when we saw things spiraling out of control. Thank you very much, Ambassador Shashank. Appreciate you joining us here on Times Now and sharing with us your perspective. With this, we will slip into another very, very short break. We'll be back with lots more. Don't go anywhere.